Добрый вечер всем. Я думаю, мы можем начинать с вами очередную лекцию. Сегодня у нас нет выступления от студентов. Сегодня только я вам рассказываю лекцию. И эта лекция, она будет посвящена результатам и обсуждению результатов, либо дискуссии, как это еще называют на английском. So, our today's topic is results and discussion. So, previously we've talked about how to conduct a study, how to collect the material, and how to initially statistically analyze it. And after you have analyzed your material, you need to present it in a clear and concise way. And this is done in the results section. So this is where you report all the findings of your study, basing on the methods which you applied. And this section, it is very important, should simply state the findings as they are and the analysis of these findings without any bias and also without any interpretation, because interpretation will be presented in the discussion section. And of course, your results should be arranged in a logical sequence. This is quite clear. And concerning the academic style, the results section should always be written in the past tense. Okay. So the content of your results section depends on the type of the study that you have conducted. It may include the following elements. First of all, 1 or 2 sentences may be provided to give some introductory context for understanding the results by restating the research problem, and once again to repeat the aim, the purpose of your study. Then you will present summary of your key findings, again arranged in a logical sequence. Besides, this section may also contain some non-textual elements, different figures, charts, photos, maps, tables, and so on. And it's great when this section actually contains non-textual elements, because it helps greatly to understand what you want to talk about. And in the text, there should be a systematic description of your results, mainly those which are most relevant to the topic. So no one will tell you how long should the results section be, because it depends on what you've done. But a general advice is to focus only on some findings that are really important and related to the problem which is stated in the aim. So let's look at some examples. This is an introductory sentence or two to provide some context for understanding the results better. Here in the study of dentin disinfection, we can see sentences which read: penetration of Enterococcus faecalis deep into the dentinal tubules of the dentin specimens from the root canal side after centrifugation was verified by both SEM, that is scanning electron microscopy, and CLSM. Information combined by the two techniques showed that the majority of tubules contained bacteria. So these are two introductory sentences just to provide some context, just to make understanding easier. One more. So this is about the radiological methods. So these introductory sentences read: 8 treatment plans based on the periapical radiographs were compared with the 8 treatment plans based on the periapical radiographs and the CBCT images, and further as summarized in the table, and so on and so forth. So please note that when a figure is at the beginning of the sentence, it should be spelled. So you can't see a figure 8 here. Instead, you see the word 8. Okay, some other examples. So sometimes the results section may be very, very short. And this is such a case. Here we have just 3 paragraphs, and that is enough. Just 3 paragraphs, 1 figure, and 2 tables. That's it. Sometimes it may be longer. So it's very important that the summary of your findings would be arranged in a logical sequence. And subtitles really help to organize your findings so that any finding could be easily found by the patient. So here you see the results of a survey about how and when endodontic specialists use cone beam CT, and they are arranged with subheadings or subtitles with question 1, question 2, question 3. Research question 1, research question 2, and research question 3. And the answer to that research question follows. Okay, the use of non-textual elements is really helpful, especially if your findings are complex and difficult to understand. You probably know that looking at some scheme or at some graph, you can understand what is meant easier. So, of course, each non-textual element should be numbered consequently through the text, and it should include some caption. So it usually goes under the figure table or chart, and in the text, each table, chart, map, figure should also have a reference like it is shown here: table 1, table 2, chart 1, chart 2, and so on. And usually it is required that the reference is at the same page where the table itself or chart itself is placed. A very common thing in authors' guidelines in different journals is that your table, your chart, your map or figure should be so-called stand-alone. That means that if somebody will open just this figure without reading the whole article, he or she should be able to understand what is it about. So the table should, figure, and any other non-textual element should include enough detail in the caption and in the subscript. It means that it is complete, sufficiently complete. Okay, what are the examples? Here is how the distribution of subject based on their age and gender can be presented. This is very common in various types of studies. So we can see it in the table or it can be presented in the chart. So here we see a chart where women and men are presented with different colors, and they are arranged according to some age groups. Sometimes for presenting some percentages, such type of chart may be more useful, a so-called pie chart, because it's similar to pie, how you will cut it before eating. So this is very common for presenting results of various questionnaires when there are many variants of answering the same question, and generally it is used to present percentages. So this is the example from the article again about the use of CBCT by endodontists in Australian journal. So another way to present percentages from the same article, this is another type of the chart. So it also includes answers to different questions and percentages on how frequently do endodontic specialists use CBCT for different purposes, as well as other types of radiography. And again, you see that both percentages and counts are presented simultaneously. Okay, tables are very common. You all are quite familiar with the tables, and each table should have a good caption. It should have full, complete information. So looking at this table, we can understand, even without trying to read the article, that we have some tests used to assess the effect of different desensitizing and not different of one desensitizing dentifrice. And we see 3 tests, 2 time points, difference and p-value telling us are the baseline and 4-week measurements different, statistically different or not. And of course we can see the explanation of every abbreviation. This is really a clear and standalone table, and we can understand it without reading the whole article. Sorry. Here we can see another type of the article, and I would like to note that it's really common to have only several horizontal lines in the table without vertical lines. This is a very, very typical requirement of foreign journals. So this table shows the knowledge of students about Middle East respiratory syndrome, a disease common to SARS-CoV-2 viral infection. And knowledge means that the patients or the participants here, students, they were to say whether they agree, disagree with the statement, or they don't know. And we have the statements here. So MERS is caused by coronavirus, yes, no, don't know. So here, again, we have absolute numbers, counts, and percentages, as said in the caption to the table. So we again can easily understand what is it about without reading the article. Okay, figures are also very useful, but they are not suitable for every article. They are especially valuable in articles where one of the method is some imaging method. This may be a microscopy or some X-ray, CBCT, and so on and so forth. We have the caption here, and by reading this caption, we again can easily understand what is it all about. So it says that scanning electron micrographs showing A, the dentin surface treated with gluma, this is a professional desensitizer, and we are asked to note the fully occluded tubules, and partially occluded tubules with a reduced diameter, and B, This is the dentin surface in depth, and we can see the penetration of some material to the considerable depth of the tubule. So again, we can understand what is it about without reading the article. So systematic reviews have specific results section, and you can read about this results section in various guidelines for writing systematic reviews. Briefly, the results first describe study selection. When you give the number of studies which you screened, assessed for eligibility, which you included, which excluded with reasons why you had to exclude some articles, and ideally this also contains non-textual element called flow diagram. Then study characteristics are usually given. So the most important data from each study which you have extracted. This commonly includes study size, then the question, that is population, intervention, control, and outcomes assessed, follow-up period, and some other parameters may be fixed depending on your research question and your aim. Then there might be the results of individual studies. Both study characteristics and results may be presented as a table or some summary chart or forest plot. And then there go non-textual elements again, which I have mentioned actually. So we can see the example from a systematic review by Reza Zadeh on laser effects on prevention and treatment of dentinal hypersensitivity. So the results tell us that the systematic review attempted to analyze all of the randomized trials and comparative works to evaluate the effectiveness of laser therapy in prevention and treatment of dentin sensitivity. And we can read that 39 studies were involved in final analysis, and they divided their studies into several groups depending on comparison group or control group and the aim of application of laser. So that is how systematic survey may start. Then we have a non-textual element that is a summarizing table with the studies included. We can see that the year, country, and the first author are listed here. Sample size, it's very important because largest studies are more important, and they give more to the evidence. Then treatment groups and specification for each group, so how many groups and what was done in each group. When treatment interval, how they assessed the pain, which stimuli they used, and the follow-up period, as well as results. So all these things may be presented in one single table in a systematic review. One more example. So after telling about the study flow chart, about the selection and inclusion of the studies, usually study characteristics are given. For example, like here, it's given in the text instead of given the table, and the text says that one study compared the effect of low-level laser and topical fluoride after scaling and route planning, and it concluded that laser was superior to fluoride. And another study, and so on and so forth. So in such systematic review, you can find only the table with a small addition in the text, and in the text, if it is present, usually the most important results are presented. It does not just completely repeats the table. And the table alone can be met rarely, but sometimes you can see just the text without any tables. Okay, if the results of observational studies and surveys are presented, and actually clinical studies are also here. So you need to report numbers of individuals at each stage, and this may also look like a study flow chart. Then you can give characteristics of study participants, demographic, clinical, social, whichever you need. Then report the number of outcome events and outcomes, summary measures, and so on and so forth. And both absolute numbers and percentages, together with some non-textual elements like tables and charts. So this is the beginning of the results of the survey, which we have already looked at about MERS. So first it starts with demographics and characteristics of participating students. And we can see that a total of 364 students were assessed, and the majority were between 20 and 22 years. More than half were pharmacy students, 22% were medical students, and these were mostly 4th and 5th year academic year students. So this is the beginning when you give some important information. Why this information is important? Well, maybe because pharmacy students may not be aware about MERS so fully as are medical students. Or maybe they decided to give this information for some other reasons. Again, here we also can see a non-textual characteristic. So when you fulfilled my task, you had to do a very similar thing. When you just made a table about basic characteristics of the study participants. Here we can see age, gender, the discipline, academic year, the presence of healthcare provider in the family, because the authors believed that if some relative is a healthcare provider, then children, people, they know in this family, they know more about medicine in general and some specific parts also. So, and of course, the presence of any relatives or friends who suffered from MERS, the presence of such relatives will again increase the knowledge definitely. So this is the demographics and basic characteristics of students. You can meet such table almost in any part, in any type of the study. Okay, now the number of outcome events or some particular answers to some particular questions, as well as summary measures. We've seen this already. Again. Similarly, but now this is specific to the survey, percentages and counts. Okay, so charts are very helpful, and you can make charts in many programs. They may be generated automatically in various statistical programs, or you may use conventional Excel to create a chart. I'm sure that many of you know how to do this, but maybe someone do not know. That's why I included it into the lecture. So I'm creating a very, very simple chart here. We have smokers and non-smokers with disease and without some disease. So this may be used for some observational studies on both cohort or case controls, where the factor influencing, the possible factor, is smoking, and the disease is some outcome which you're interested in. So you create such simple like table where you place the counts of each category, and then you can use insert and chart. When you choose to insert a chart, you can choose various variants of these charts, and here we can see one of the variants. So you see absolute numbers of smokers, non-smokers, and people with disease and without the disease. Then you can change chart style by right-click on your picture. For example, you can choose to do such variants. So different types of charts are suitable for different types of data. I suggest that at this point, if you want to use some chart, you can look at similar studies and choose the chart that was chosen by other authors, or you can study this in detail using various books. Okay, so that was about the results section. This is actually the heart of the study, the purpose of the study. But after presenting your results, you need to discuss. You need to put your results into some context of other research provided by other people. So, besides, in the discussion section, you can explain why you have chosen some method, why you did exactly what you did. Yeah, and it is probably one of the most creative sections because it does not have a very, very strict structure, and you are somewhat free in expressing your thoughts in this section. So different ways of organizing discussion section were reported, and this is one of these ways where the author, Gassemi, suggests to start from the beginning. So in the beginning part, the first sentence of the first paragraph should state the importance and new findings of the research. And the first paragraph as a whole may repeat answers to your research questions. So, of course, you need to answer the research question which was stated in the introduction section. So this very briefly, very shortly, repeats the most important results, the most important things that you found. Then there goes a middle part. The middle part may contain some interpretations of the results to defend your answers. So you can go in some detail. You can explain why you have chosen your method. And you can also give more detail to the results. Besides, you will also mention the limitations of the study and compare your study with other studies of the same subject. So it's a very rare condition when your study is the first and only. In the majority of topics, there is a huge amount of other studies similar with yours, which were previously published. So you need to tell whether your results are in agreement with the previous studies or whether they corroborate the previous findings. And a good way to write the discussion will be to try to explain why there are differences in your results and other studies, or maybe what are important details in yours. And the very final part, the end part, usually concludes the study, and it usually gives the very short conclusion, I'm sorry. Excuse me once again. So this is one way to organize your discussion. Then in this variant, you will broaden your context. So first of all, you will just answer the particular questions which you asked at the beginning. Then in the middle part, you will provide comparison with previous works, so you will broaden your context. Then provide interpretation, strengths and limitation, and in the end, it's very important in the conclusion to tell why the results are important, what is the significance of the study, which gap in the knowledge it actually fills, and where it can be used. So from in this variant, you go from something very narrow, like results of particular study, and you end up with how these results can actually improve healthcare or something, or diagnosis. Another possible way to organize the discussion is actually similar. It differs in some small details. So usually it starts with discussion of the most important findings, comparison with other published works, then there go strengths and limitations, conclusions. Also, some journals require possible implications of your study and significance, and a very good way to finish your study is to give some future research questions which should be answered by some future studies. So to give young scientists the idea what to study in this topic. And one more option, but actually it's also very similar, in the first paragraph to provide some interpretation based on your key findings, and then support it with evidence, with exact numbers and statistical analysis. In the middle paragraph, you may include some secondary results, so those which are not really clinically relevant, or maybe which were not stated as separate questions, but which you further discuss because they also may have some meaning, they also may have some importance. The same with limitations. You can also state your unexpected findings if they are present, and give some comparisons to previous publications. And in the last, again, you will provide some summary, conclusion, and again pay more attention to significance, implications, and potential next steps. So basically all these variants are very, very close, and when you prepared your articles for Journal Club, you've seen I guess some of these variants, so you have idea how to write the discussion section. So there are some important tips here. It's important that discussion section is not simply a repetition of results section. So it's not a good way to write the discussion section. So discussion section is broad, and you need to compare your results with other results, not just restate them. And in order to write a good discussion, you need to go back to your summary table, that is, to the analysis of the literature at the very beginning of your research, and compare your results with some studies which you read before planning yours. So you will definitely discuss where your information is similar, your findings are similar, whether they are different from other published evidence, and what was different in methods, analysis, why this difference could occur. In the discussion section, you can just repeat a big picture results. So you can repeat just the most important findings, then explain and compare. Like, the majority of the respondents were women. The majority of the respondents were women, and this may be due to the fact that women in general are more concerned about healthy lifestyle, or so on. So when you discuss your findings, you need to provide references to the studies with which you compare, of course. So in discussing similarities and differences with other studies, this is the example. The awareness about different oral health products in the present study was higher than in the study by somebody else, possibly because the majority of the respondents in the present study were dental faculty students. Something really obvious. Another example. This was the online questionnaire on the self-reported level of oral hygiene, while the majority of previous studies assessed oral hygiene in indices, that is, others were clinical. Therefore, the reported oral hygiene level might be overestimated. Yeah, because people may think that they clean teeth better than they actually do. This is how you can try to explain some particular answers to your questionnaire. And you usually finish discussion with conclusion. It may be a separate section in the study, or this may be just the final paragraph. And again, it's not just a restatement of the results. It should give the most important information, and it will be very good if it will also tell about some clinical clinical implications of your results. So the general rule is if the person who reads your article will forget everything that he or she has read, he still should remember the conclusion. So this is so-called take-home message, the most important thing which should be remembered from your study. And usually the study, of course, is finished with references. So we did not pay a lot of attention to references, but I can just tell you that there are many styles of references. They are slightly different, but they include generally the same information, like author names, article names, journal name, full or shortened, and the year and volume number of the issue of the journal, and pages. So sometimes it may also include a digital identifier, links, and so on and so forth. The style which you need to use is usually stated in the journal guidelines, and if you use various reference managers like Mendeley, EndNote, and others, they usually have some collection of styles, and you can choose from this collection. The main idea is that all references should be within the same style. So now you are almost ready to write any project. During the lectures, we talked about choosing the title and stating your hypothesis and question, writing introduction, developing your methods, writing and presenting the results, and finally discussing your results and making the conclusion with references. So we've answered all questions: why you conducted your study, how you did that, what results you got, and so what. So why this is important, why one should care about your study. Finishing with references. So now you can use this information in any project that you will do at this department or in any other department. And I have one more lecture planned about making presentations, I guess next week. And after that, I have no other ready lectures, and I'm ready to listen to your proposals, your ideas, what will be interesting to you. You can send them in the chat or you can write directly to me. Okay, I guess that the lecture was quite simple today and you probably have no questions, but if you have, I'm ready to answer. The questions about results, discussions, and references. It seems that there are no questions today. So thank you all for coming. And I will send the link to this lecture to our chat as usual, and I will share the PDF. I can see the chat. Thank you for your speech. You're welcome. Да, да.
Я хотела сказать спасибо большое за лекцию. Очень за лекции вообще, в принципе. Мне кажется, они очень сильно помогли нам, помогают и будут еще помогать. Вот. Может быть, еще не вся информация так воспринята, как должна быть воспринята, но я уверена, что со временем все разложится по полочкам. Вот. И хотела еще сказать, что я записалась в таблице на разбор статьи на май. Можно будет?
Безусловно, конечно. Безусловно, можно. Да, конечно, выберем с вами статью и все сделаем. Да, конечно, журнальный клуб продолжается. Если кто-то готов выступить еще раз, или если кто-то еще не выступал, пожалуйста. Это очень ценно, особенно тем, кто будет готовить сейчас на конкурсы разные работы. Я думаю, что им можно просто разбирать статьи, которые они берут для разработки своих материалов и методов.
Я еще хотела сказать, что я прочитала ваше сообщение утром. Если можно, я вам в субботу отвечу.
Да, конечно. На здоровье всем. Я очень надеюсь, что, правда, это окажется хоть чем-то где-то как-то полезным. А вообще тут рецепт очень простой. Вы вот можете много об этом слушать, все понимать, но пока вы не начнете реально это делать, вопросы не появятся, все по полкам не разложится. То есть нужно просто брать и делать. Тут никаких сюрпризов нет. И да, оно не будет сначала получаться, но практика творит совершенство. Так, я вижу вопрос Казима. Да, допустимо ли в обсуждении написать дальнейшие вопросы так, как будто именно наша команда исследователей собирается работать над ними? Часто такое слышу, особенно на конференциях. Совершенно верно, очень часто пишут, что именно мы собираемся дальше над этим работать, и это не всегда означает, что на самом деле исследователи собираются продолжать свою работу в этом направлении. Иногда это просто, такой ход для того, чтобы показать, что вы понимаете, что это исследование не идеально, что вы знаете, что там улучшать, и вы планируете это делать дальше. Вот по определенным причинам, когда рецензент читает статью, в которой написана такая фраза, он легче воспринимает недостатки исследования. Например, если это какое-то пилотное исследование, если там действительно есть какие-то недостатки в методологии, то ревьюеру легче согласиться принять эту статью, рецензенту, простите, просто потому что авторы сами говорят, что они продолжают над этим работать. Но иногда действительно пишут, что сделают и действительно, думают и делают в этом направлении. Так что да, конечно, допустимо это очень часто. Это очень часто делают и на конференциях, и в статьях, и в диссертации даже иногда оппоненту отвечают, когда уже, есть какой-то недостаток, который исправить в данной диссертации уже нельзя. Часто на защите даже можно услышать, что оппонент говорит: спасибо большое за ваши замечания, мы обязательно учтем это в нашей дальнейшей работе, что-нибудь вот такое. Это прям стандартная такая вещь, поэтому, конечно, это можно услышать на конференциях. Хорошо, спасибо всем, кто пришел. Да, я, как всегда, в чате. мы с вами договоримся по поводу журнального клуба, а в следующий раз планирую прочитать про презентацию, про то, как делать презентации. Спасибо всем, кто пришел. Хорошего вам вечера. До свидания, до следующей недели.